listening to the Marketing and Yoga Pants podcast, a podcast in sisterhood for female entrepreneurs that serves up savvy, actionable marketing advice and interviews with creative business owners who are in the trenches, building their businesses as we speak. The Marketing and Yoga Pants community is for you, the girl on her couch, in her yoga pants, top knot tight, hunched over her MacBook, trying her hardest to get the word out about her business. So in the name of supporting each other while supporting ourselves, bringing community, sound marketing advice, coffee, chocolate, and wine together for you, yoga pants wearing business owner, in a world where followers mean nothing, but paying customers mean the world, join us on this week's podcast episode and in our private Facebook group where you'll meet your soul sisters and build your business in yoga pants. Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing and Yoga Pants podcast. I'm Brit and I'm here today with Megan Seeley, the anti-productivity coach at thegoaldesigner.com. Megan, what's up, girl?
Oh, girl, I'm super excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you. If you've been listening to the podcast, you have definitely heard from Megan before, and you might recognize her name. She's in our private Facebook group. I mean, where I go, Megan goes. Where Megan goes, I go to. So Megan and I have really been following each other around the internet for a while now. So you probably recognize this name. And Megan and I had our first interview on this podcast last year around this same time. It went live August 31st, 2017. So if you want to go back and listen to that episode, you certainly can. But now I've brought Megan back on the podcast because I've been able to watch her entire business existence just morph so much and grow so much over the last year. And we both thought it would be really cool to bring her back on the podcast and get some insight into what's been going on over the past 12 months and not just skim over it like a lot of podcast interviews do, but really dig in there and see, okay, what has changed? What has helped you? And just to get a really deep, intricate look into that progression and that the inner workings of what really goes on in a business over the course of 12 months. So that's why we're here today. And I'm really pumped to get started. So Meg, are you ready to jump in?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, let's do this. All right. So like we said, we talked about a year ago and got an insight into what was going on back then. If somebody hasn't listened to that episode before, or they just don't know you yet, can you give us a peek into what was going on in your business back then at the end of August 2017?
Yeah, so when that episode went live, I had launched my business that day. So I had no business before then. My business launched August 31st, 2017. And so I knew I wanted to start a business. I knew that I had some sort of like productivity organization angle. And so I just decided to throw spaghetti at the wall and see how it went. And that's where we started a year ago. So a lot has changed in the last year, but yeah, you caught me at my very first day in business, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I remember that being super interesting. Not a look that you typically get to hear about as it's happening, because usually when you're on a podcast, you've had a business for a while. I mean, that's kind of why you're on a podcast. But because Megan and I have been, like I said, following each other on the internet for a couple years, we knew that this was coming. And so we thought, oh, how cool would it be to showcase the first day? Like, hey, I'm putting my stake in the ground and I'm starting this business. Here's what I've done to get ready for this day, and here's what I plan to do. So again, that's a pretty cool episode. Go back to hear the full story back there, especially if you are thinking of starting your business or you have just recently done so. That could be a really good listen. Obviously, why we're here today is to figure out what's been going on over the last year. Like, I know it's been a lot. So let's dig in. So if you could give us a snapshot of where you are today compared to a year ago, and then we'll dig into the inner workings of what got you here. So just give us a snapshot. What's going on in your business right now?
Okay, so now I'm an anti-productivity coach, which means that I help people use planners to do less for everyone else so they can do more for themselves. And I specifically work with moms now. So back when I first started, I was trying to cater to creatives, to entrepreneurs, to parents, to pretty much anybody that would hire me for anything. I had my process down, so I help people take really high level goals and break them down into really actionable chunks. But over the last year, I've transformed that and gotten really specific. So I only coach for moms right now, and I use paper planners to do it. So planners are something that I've just been interested in for a long time. And in my story, my planner kind of saved my life in a way. And so I just have started learning more about them. And I have this magic superpower of being able to ask you a few questions and tell you exactly what planner you need. And so the last year has been a lot of focusing and a lot of refining. And now my direction is very clear. So I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching for moms. And it's all centered around your perfect planner and how to use it and using it consistently.
That's so cool. So, I mean, just so much focus there. If I had to summarize that, it's just like the number one thing that has happened is a focus, not only in what you do, but who you do it for. So would you say, I'm just trying to understand, would you say like when you started out, you knew how to do what you were trying to do, but then over the course of this past year, you've really honed in on who you do it for? Take us into that, like the refining of the whole thing.
Yeah, so I started out, my business launched in August 31st of last year. In October, I was in coaching with Brit, with our fun, fancy host, Brit, and she helped me figure out, okay, like let's make a direction. Let's really figure out who your ideal client is. And so a month into my business, I realized, okay, moms, they're the ones for me. I'm in for that. But I was still like, okay, moms that own businesses, moms that do what, like moms, what about them? And so that was really my first, I guess you could call it niching down. So I was no longer going after creatives or just business owners in general. I was like, all right, moms that own businesses, this is my first thing. So just a couple months in. And then also in October, actually, that year, I went to the first She Did It Her Way Summit. And that helped me niche down even more, and it helped me focus even more. And then in April, I signed up to work with Steph Crowder of the Courage and Clarity podcast in her Clarity Deep Dive coaching group. And that helped me niche down even more. And then over the summer, I've been working with Raina Pomeroy in her Profit and Serve program. And she helped me figure out the planner piece of it. So the first 6 to 7 months of my business were all just figuring out who am I serving specifically and how my story can relate to who I'm serving. And then the last few months of the summer, I've been figuring out, okay, now what can I do to serve them in a way that I know how? And so that is through using a planner.
Okay, so we're going to get into all of those touch points in a second. What I want to focus in on first, though, is that you started focusing, you started niching based on your previous life experiences. And I think we could totally gloss over that and not even talk about it. But can you take me into understanding why you decided to focus on moms in the beginning? Because like you said, you had so many different options and so many people that you could technically help with this business that you were creating. Why moms? Why were you drawn there, and why was it the right decision for you?
I wanted to initially serve moms because I am one. And it's one of those things when you are a parent that your life changes in a way that when you're not a parent, you can't quite totally wrap your brain around. Like intellectually, things change and your priorities change and the time you have for things change. But when you're in it and you're living it, it's a lot different. And so that was a big draw for me because that was a huge part of my story personally. And I knew that moms would specifically be able to resonate with that. But also a little bit of trial and error. So one of the clientele that I wanted to serve was creatives because I have a very linear, organized brain. I knew that my skills could really help creatives that maybe aren't able to think that way, but need to. But I had a couple of creative clients and I was able to help them and it was great, but I didn't love it. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I don't love working with creatives, so I need to not do that anymore. So that got cut. Mm-hmm. And then as time went on, April was a very big month for me. So I went also to the second She Did It Her Way Summit. And I was actually walking around the city with Brit and we were just talking about, I was trying to serve moms who were also entrepreneurs. And we were just kind of talking like, you know what? No, I don't think that your story is really that. I think your story is the opposite of that. So instead of serving moms who are business owners to find time for their family, it's serving moms who spend so much time serving their family to find time for themselves. And so just that little switch, and it wasn't huge, but just that little switch of thought really impacted the entire course of my business.
I have not thought about that walk through the city of Chicago since that happened. I kind of forgot that was a part of this whole thing. It was just like, really free flowing and we were just kind of jamming, right? Just completely open-ended. We're not trying to find a solution here, but we're just talking about the options. And honestly, as one person of two that was part of that conversation, I haven't thought about that since, but I'm so pumped to hear that was part of your efforts in focusing in on who you're serving. That's so cool. That's awesome. And it sounds like it wasn't only driven by personal experience, but also that super crucial trial and error piece. Again, I think something that people want to skip over because let's face it, nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to work with a client and potentially not love it. I know for sure that you got the results that you promised for those clients. It's a whole other thing to then say, okay, I got the results from them, but it wasn't necessarily my favorite thing. Like, this isn't something that I necessarily want to continue doing. That takes a lot of strength to be able to say, thanks, but no thanks, and then continue to pivot and continue to niche down. So personal experience coupled with the trial and error. And I also want to reflect to you, Megan, that you've also been willing to open up and figure this stuff out. You have never come at this problem with too big of a head, too big of an ego to say, I know exactly who, how this is going to work. It's been so much more, who can I learn from? Where can I gain insight from and wisdom from and continue to be open to how this evolves and changes? And Meg, if I had to pinpoint what has allowed you to take such quantum leaps forward this past year, it's that openness. So let's see how that has really operated in your life, because being open to others' opinions, it takes on different forms for different people. So you mentioned that you were a part of a few pretty pivotal programs in the past 12 months. Take us into what those programs helped you with and why you decided to continue taking more programs, and how has that functioned in your business? Do you feel like it's helped you? Do you feel like it's, I don't know, like what's been the result for you?
It's been pivotal for me to take these programs. And I think the hard thing here is I know that there are a lot of people that will enroll in things and spend money on courses and spend money on coaching and spend money on programs and get no further ahead than when they started, except now they have spent all this money. And so for me, really following these people for a long time before paying them and really kind of vetting them to make sure that they can get me the results that I want before investing my money into it was huge. Like Steph Crowder has her podcast. I listened to that as I was building my business. And I joined her group and I took advantage of all of the resources that she had to offer. And so when the time came that she was like, hey, I'm opening this group up, do you want in? It was a very easy yes for me. And with that program in particular, at that point in my business, I was very action driven. So I am able to just work, and get things done and churn things out. But at that point, I felt like I didn't have a direction. I felt like I was just working to work and churning things out just to churn things out. And I didn't have any idea what my long-term business strategy was looking like. And so I hired and I joined in on Steph's group program because she is very much able to take the little pieces and make a long-term strategy out of it, which is something that I desperately needed help with. And so at that point, I needed somebody to just give me a high-level strategy where I could not create that on my own. And with Raina's program, Raina Pomeroy's Profit and Serve program, that has helped me take the strategy that I got from Steph and then figure out the components of it in a strategic way. And so I'm still doing all of the work and I'm still really pushing hard, but there's strategy behind it. And it's something that I think when you're a new business owner, you just kind of assume it will all fall into place. And it does sort of a lot of the time, but really just knowing that I need help with that early on, I think has been the driver for my business direction in the last year.
I just wrote down 4 different things. So we're just going to start at the top because I think you just hit on something really crucial, not only for someone looking to be a part of programs or courses or working with a coach for that person and for the person that's offering those courses and coaching services. You took time to vet all of those people. You followed them for a while. You grabbed everything that they gave you for free, all their lead magnets, everything that they offered to truly vet someone. So I think that that's helpful for the consumer to remember that a proper vetting process is going to make that eventual investment worth it because you're not just sitting on a hope and prayer, like thinking that this is the answer you need, but not really sure. I mean, just like you said, like it was an easy yes to be like, yep, Steph Crowder, I got you, girl. I've been following you for a while. I like every single thing that you've given me so far. Why would this be any different? Boom. High five to Steph. She's also been a guest on the podcast. And I'm also a huge fan of Steph. Everything she puts out. Yes, girl, you're doing a great job. So that vetting part. And so if you're listening and you're wondering why maybe your last program that you put out there didn't quite go the way you wanted it to go, consider what you gave prior to that. It might not have been your technical launch strategy. It might have just been the fact that the strategy up until that launch strategy was kind of non-existent, right? So that's a huge piece. And I also heard you say you can find people who are willing to spend money on a course, spend money on a program, spend money on a coach. And then you changed your language and you said, and I chose to invest in these specific programs. And I think that there's a very interesting difference between spending money on things and investing money on things. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you understand the difference as well. So take us into at least your process in deciding how to invest your money in your business.
So it's funny that you bring up that language change. I didn't notice it when I said it, but it's very true because when you spend money on programs, you are procrastinating is what I'm finding from people is you are looking for something that will essentially do the work for you or so that you can feel like you are making progress even when you aren't. And you can blame it then on, well, the program didn't work. Well, this didn't work for me. But when you're investing in something, when you go in from that mindset, you're going into it thinking, okay, this is money I'm putting in. How can I make sure that I get what I need to get out of it? Mm-hmm. And so that was the biggest thing for me is, okay, when I sign up for this group program, what am I getting out of it? Is it a monetary ROI? Like, am I going to make my money back at the end of this program because of it? Or is it giving me the ability to take the next step, and that will then start bringing money in? So in the case of Steph's program, it was the latter. So it's just helping me organize and take the next step and be strategic. So not necessarily a monetary ROI. And I think it's important to understand that there are differences between investing in something you're making your money back on and investing in something you're growing from. And I think you can do both, but sometimes it's just one or the other, and you have to know whether that's worth it for you.
That's interesting. It's like some of these really, really positive investments that you can make into your business might not churn an ROI by the time you get done with the program. But I would argue that program that you did with Steph is completely foundational to your entire livelihood, and therefore will equate to long-term increases in revenue, long-term ROI. And you might not even see that just yet, although I think you are, but you might not see it by the end of the program. But on a long-term, big picture, frame of mind, oh my goodness, totally foundational and totally setting you up for success. So I like that you made that, just so we're aware of that difference. And then so people can think about how they're spending and how they're investing their money in these different programs. Keep going.
Yeah, I'll say doing that first and then taking Raina's program helped me, because in Raina's program, she's helping me with Steph helped me with the long-term strategy. Raina's helping me with, okay, what are we doing now? How can we do this for you now? How can we make a foundation for you that's helping you right now? And so I've already started to see a monetary ROI from my investment with Raina. And we're not even done with the program yet, because she's helping me make those shifts inside my long-term strategy. And so I think kind of getting a vision of not just what your next step is, but where you want to see your business going long-term is big when you're trying to decide what to invest in.
Yeah.
Because I think if I had done these programs in the opposite way, I don't think I would have seen the type of success and the type of forward momentum that I've gotten.
It's really good insight. So now I have to say, I'm not one. I think we go about learning and growing and progressing our businesses in different ways, between you and I. I have never been one to buy the courses, enroll in programs. I have had coaches, but that's kind of different. I just haven't invested my money in that way. I'm not like I think it's kind of like a stereotype. As creative entrepreneurs, we just buy all the courses and then we never finish them. I know you don't do that, because when again, this is not spending, this is investing. You put your heart and soul into everything you commit to. But neither one of us are that stereotype, and we're doing things a little differently. You are choosing to be a part of these programs and really connect with these leaders in your industry. And to be honest, I haven't really done that in my business. And so can you take me into why you chose to go that route and why you think it's helping you?
Yeah. So I think because I do some VA work on the side outside of my business, and I think that one of the people that I work for, she is kind of a leader in her space in the entrepreneur world. And it kind of opened my eyes to what goes into being the type of kind of powerhouse that she is, seeing what she does on the back end and how she functions and how she structures her business and how she does things. And so honestly, I think that experience alone has really helped me want to get closer to other leaders, to see how they do things and to see who they interact with and what they do and the way they structure, because that helps me kind of make sense where I'm at as a new business owner, seeing, okay, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, like this is the kind of caliber that needs to happen for me to be at that level that they're at. And so I like to get close to leaders in the industry because it helps me see where I need to be aiming. And it helps me see the things that I need to do. And it kind of helps me see what my next steps are based on where I'm at.
Yes, I really appreciate that perspective. Like I said, guys, I'm gonna tell you right now, I look up to certain people. I'm not, I want to say, the type of person to then enroll in their programs. I tend to be the person that thinks she already knows the answer, which holds me back, you guys. I'm gonna be honest. That's not always the best way to be. But Megan and I just know each other really well. And so we had a chance to kind of jam about this a little bit before we hit record. But what we realized and what we've known for a while is we have very different personality types. And if I had to guess, I think what's going on here, kind of how we've approached what programs we're a part of, which ones we're not, if we are part of programs, if we choose to not be. I think this is a way in which we're showing our personality types. So what I know about Megan is that she is an ISFJ, also known as a defender. And as a defender, we know that Meg really loves organization. I mean, hashtag planner life, right? Like that's kind of what you do. And I'm an ENFJ, also known as the protagonist. And there's an interesting dynamic that goes on between these two personality types. ISFJs tend to really love organization and also using templates. And they're so good at following templates and step-by-step action plans, making it their own as they go. And Meg, I see that that's how you have used these investments in these programs. And I think that's part of why it's really worked for you. You've found that you love to watch and glean insight and wisdom from these people. And as long as they're people that you have vetted really well, that's why this stuff is working for you. So can you speak into that? Like, can you speak into why you think following these people has been the answer for you specifically?
Yeah. So I kind of think of coaching like a template, right? So kind of bringing it back to that. So I love following a template. I love following a step-by-step thing. And with business, there's no manual. There's no next step that is universal for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, vetting these people makes me see that, okay, they can help me take the next step that I need to take or that I want to take. And so just coaching itself, when you really think about it, is a template. Mm-hmm. Because your coach never does the work for you. You're always doing it, but they're helping you take the next step in the right direction. And you have somebody there to kind of be your guardrails. And so for me, that was really helpful because I needed the next step. I can do a lot of work, but I need to know the next right step. And sometimes, at least for me, it was helpful to invest my money in knowing that I'm taking the next right step for the direction I want to go in.
Yeah. And well, and to your credit, you chose two very, very qualified women to lead you to that next step. So again, well, and yeah, I mentioned Steph, and Raina has been on the podcast before as well. Love everything Raina puts out into the world too. So, I mean, couldn't support you more on those choices. So, but it's an interesting dynamic. So some people are going to really love to have that step-by-step templated coaching experience out there for them to kind of be a part of and make it their own, as they go. And then there will be other people that might be listening and thinking like, wait, so does this mean I have to go be a part of these programs to be a success in my first year? And honestly, from my perspective, I think the answer is no. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to do it. This is just a peek into how Megan has found it works for her based on who she naturally is as a person. So I like that we could go there here. There's never a right or wrong answer. There's just a right or wrong answer for you. And knowing yourself helps you find the right answer faster. So very cool. Meg, if you could sum up your past 12 months, what's your major takeaway from your first year in business? Could we take it there? Like, have you thought about that? What's like the one thing that you know that you've learned and want to take into your second year in business?
I think a combination of focus and service. So focusing on who I'm serving, what I'm doing, all of that stuff. But on the other side of it is really getting into just serving people because that's what I want to do and not necessarily only to make money. I have a hard time sometimes trying to do the sort of relationship marketing that we really need to be doing and that I respond well to myself. So just reaching out and giving and serving. I have a hard time doing that naturally. And so it's a big thing, you hear it from everywhere. You need to serve, like you need to show up for your people and show them so that they can vet you, so that when it's time for them to pay you for something, it's a really easy and it feels good. And I have a hard time with that. And so it's been a lot of learning how to do that and to do it authentically, and focusing on who I'm serving and what I'm doing is really helping me do that more authentically. And I've just been a really big proponent in letting it be easy.
Amen, sister. Yes.
If I'm finding resistant, I don't think that I should do it. And it's weird because it's not, resistance and it being hard are not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so when I feel resistance to something like in my gut, when I'm like, I don't want to be doing this, I tend to stop doing that. But when I find resistance because I just need to do the work, that's different. And so I will still push forward through that. But I think just finding ways to focus and letting it be easy to serve. I need to make it easy for myself to serve so that it's easy for my clients to buy from me.
I love it. So what does it look like for Megan to show up in a natural way and serve her people? What does that look like specifically for you?
So for me, I started a Facebook group, which I wasn't sure I wanted to do a year ago, but I'm finding that having one place to really focus on my people has been the biggest shift in how I'm able to show up and serve. And so it's a group for moms only. And so I know that I'm not talking to everybody like I would on Instagram. The only people in my group are moms. And so it's easy for me to show up for them in an authentic way because I know I'm only talking to my kind of people.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And well, I also know this, and I just want you to riff on it because I think it's awesome. How do you approach your Facebook group? From what I've gathered, it's kind of in a unique way. You've brought these women together under the umbrella of like, I'm here to support you, right? And we're here to support each other. Can you take us into the ways in which you manage that Facebook group and you show up for those people in your unique way? Give us like some examples.
Yeah, so I have a weekly Facebook Live that I do called Let's Wine About It, WINE. Pour myself a glass of wine and I hop on and I just talk about a topic that I've seen in the group that others have talked about during the week. And I just kind of riff on what's the conversation? Like, what are people talking about? What are you thinking about? Where's your mind this week? So some weeks it's about mom stuff, like making friends as moms. And sometimes it's about planners. Like last night was about how to choose a planner. Like what comes up for you when you choose a planner. And I don't like to do theme days. I don't like to have much of a structure around it. I just like to kind of follow the flow of what my members are up to. So I'll usually ask, what's going on? How can I support you this week? I'll ask questions about planners. Like, what do you feel when it's time to buy a new planner? Like, what does that make you feel like? I really just try to foster a conversation and a safe place for moms to open up about things that you can't really do in other places. So like wanting to spend time on yourself, you feel guilty about that. And although it's a very common feeling, it's not something that we're comfortable talking about because your well-meaning Aunt Diane might show up and be like, well, this is the best time in your life and you should appreciate it. And then you feel bad for feeling guilty. And, so just this is a spot for moms to just come together and just kind of take a deep breath and relax.
That's so cool. I think you hit on, hang on, I'm gonna collect my thoughts here. I know you hit on something that I really wanted to pull out of that. Oh, I remember. Okay. So I think you hit on something, and I've seen this in other in my clients and other people that I've worked with before. Can you tell me, and maybe I'm just reading between the lines too far, this might not be the case, but have you found it difficult to create content without someone asking you to create the content for them? Like, because it sounds like you are paying attention to what your people need and then creating the content from there, rather than coming up with this big bold content strategy kind of off the top of your head because you think that's what people need, rather than actually seeing the need right there in the group. Is that resonating with you at all right now? Has that been a thing for you?
100%. So I had tried previously to opening this group to just have a big content strategy, and I mapped out a whole year of content. I had a whole plan based on what I thought people wanted to read, but being in this group and really listening to people has helped me create my content basically for itself. So any blog post that you see come up now, I guarantee you I've talked about it either on a live in my group or just in a conversation thread on that group, or even in a private message with somebody based on something that came up within the group. And so it's really been a lot more relaxing for me, actually, because listening to what people want to talk about makes it really easy to create content because you're not just pulling it out of thin air and you don't feel like you're talking to yourself or nobody. You know that there are people that have raised their hand and said, hey, what about this? Can I learn more about this? What can you tell me about this? And it's easier to create content for that because somebody's asking you, somebody wants to know that, and it makes it flow a lot better.
Okay, so I didn't really know that about you, but I was just picking it up on it. And I'm really glad we went here because this isn't something I hear a lot of people talk about, although I do see it as a trend. So, that to me, knowing your personality type makes a ton of sense because you are the defender. You are the quintessential mama bear, there to support and there to protect everyone. And so you're not one to really project what people need. You are better at responding to what people need and supplying that and providing that, which I love that about you. I love that about all my ISFJs. I also see this dynamic happening quite often with personality types ENFP. They are also a very great mama bear type in a different way. The ENFPs are really great hosts and often take the matriarch role in their families and even in their friend circles. And they tend to be really, really great at responding in a thoughtful way to someone's needs. I see that trend kind of not as cool with creating a big, full, huge content strategy that they've come up with in their own mind. It's more of a reaction and response to the people in their communities. I also see this happening with INFPs. They have that same dynamic a lot of time. Again, when I present this stuff to you guys, it's not a rule, it's just a trend that we see within the personality type. It's not a rule, though. It's not like every single one of these types is like this. It's just something I see. And if we can become more self-aware on that and give ourselves permission to show up maybe in a way that's not as common but feels better to us, guess what? That's probably going to work a lot better for you, like Megan has found, as opposed to coming up with the big, huge, full-blown 12-month content strategy. She's found a different way to do that, and it's working for her. So thanks for being willing to dig into that. I like that. So let's shift now to talk about what you're working on. I mean, okay, a year has gone by. Oh my goodness, blink of an eye, and also probably felt like a long time. What are you working on right now? What do we need to know about that's going on at the Goal Designer?
Well, so I launched a quiz last month. So it is a planner quiz to help you figure out what type of planner is perfect for you. So daily or weekly. So it kind of helps you start to hone in on, okay, what kind of planner do I need? Because there's a ton of them out there. So I have that. And I am actually gearing up to launch a group coaching program because I have been listening to my people. And the biggest things that they're asking for are, I don't want to feel alone. And my biggest problem is I'm not consistent when I want to use my planner. And so listening has completely reshaped the way that I offer coaching. And so I'm opening up group coaching next month because people feel kind of silly that they aren't able to be consistent with their planner. I don't know why, but there's some weird thing that we've all got in our heads that you should just know how to use a planner and be good at it immediately without any instruction or help or anything. Like it should just be intuitive, and that's not really the case.
Mm-hmm.
And people feel a little bit kind of weird about it. Like it feels weird that I don't know how to use a planner very well. And so group coaching is really good there because you're in a group of people that feel the same way. You are not alone. Almost nobody can just pick up a planner and just use it forever in any meaningful way without some sort of a strategy behind it and without consistency. And so with my group program, I'm offering consistency and making sure that you know you're not alone. And it really will help to bounce ideas on how their other people's strategies and how they use their planner might work for you too, versus I had previously just been offering one-on-one coaching, which is great, but I know about myself that I don't have all the answers to everything. I can be a great guide. I have a lot of expertise in this area, but just being in a group of people that also have experiences to draw from, and I mean, just kind of listening to you with the marketing personalities, Brit, it's really opened my mind a little bit to maybe getting a group of people together that have different personalities is only going to make all of my clients' experiences that much better.
Yes. That diversity piece is so huge. I'm seeing that in my mastermind group as well. The diversity, as humans, we kind of like to be around things that we understand, and those often are other types of professionals and personality types that are similar to ours. But something really magical happens when we're around people that aren't very similar to us and have different life experiences and diverse perspectives. And then somehow by being around them, our lives improve. So yeah, I dig that so much. And oh man, I just love seeing the progress, but not just progress, because progress alone can be very flawed. I love seeing the intentionality behind everything you're doing, Megan. And again, I have to come back to your openness to try things and experiment, not putting all the pressure on any one thing to work, and just allowing things to grow as they need to. Again, I just have to reflect that back to you, because it feels really good to watch you do that. It feels so natural and easy and smooth. Super cool. You should feel good about that.
I'm glad it looks that way, because it's definitely not easy or smooth.
Well, you know what? Yes. Thank you for saying that, because you're right. It's never as easy and smooth as, maybe it looks like from the outside. So thank you for calling me on that, because I hate it when people are like, how do you do all that? And how do you make it look so easy? And I'm like, wait, what? It's not. But yeah, good call. From my vantage point, I just love seeing you grow more into what feels good and how you are really meant to serve people. I can tell you're really in your zone, which always makes me feel good. So thank you for that. If you could sum up how you feel about your last 12 months, how does it feel to look back and think about what you've been through and what you've made happen and what has happened for you this past year?
Powerful. It feels very powerful just to know that I created essentially something that doesn't exist. I created it into existence and refined it into something that's actually useful and impactful on people's lives. And just knowing that a year and a month ago that it didn't exist, it makes me feel very powerful to know that I have that kind of energy that I can harness to create something.
I love that. Thank you for that answer. That's super cool. Okay. And so one last question, of course, we have to end with. We have to look back on Megan a year ago, that girl on her couch, hunched over her MacBook, keeping her little girl Madeline under control. She's still that girl, right? Like life probably doesn't look a whole lot different, but the business does. I'd love for you to look back on Megan a year ago and tell us, what would you say to her?
I would say don't be afraid to play. The benefit of being in the very early days of your business is that nobody's paying attention to you. Not in a bad way, but in a really good way. So you have this runway to try things and change it up and totally switch the game if you want to, because you don't have the audience and the people that are relying on you to be this one thing. And it's a very interesting time in business. And so I would just tell her it's fine, because I had a lot of days where I was feeling so flaky. I'm like changing who I'm serving, I'm changing what I'm doing, I'm changing my messaging, like I'm changing everything all the time. And it feels like I can't get comfortable and I can't just ease into one thing. But I would just say, just embrace that, experiment, play, because that's the only way you're going to find the thing that you can ease into and the thing that you can relax into. And so a year later, I finally found my thing, but it's only because I played.
Yes. Mic drop. I don't know what else to say. Other than I will, from my vantage point as someone who's been in business for 2 years and not one, I think that that's a great thing to remember every single day of your business. Because whether you've been in business for 1 day, 1 year, or 10 years, or 20 years, or 30 years, that's going to hold you back if you're afraid to play. So the advice that you just gave us all, Megan, is so empowering to just be willing to play, not be afraid of playing, because that's where the juice is. That's where the good stuff is. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for bringing that to us. And okay, so to finish this great conversation out, can you tell the listeners where they can go find you online, and especially that quiz? Because that's really what you've been working on. And I know that's really where people need to go, especially if they're looking to do less within their planner so they have more time for themselves. Where do they go to find you?
So you can find the quiz at thegoaldesigner.com/quiz. My website is thegoaldesigner.com. You can find me on pretty much any social media at thegoaldesigner. Make sure you add the. There's somebody squatting on goaldesigner.com, so don't go there.
That's man, there are so many website squatters out there. I wish we could somehow find them and be like, hey, stop doing that. All right. Thank you so much for that. Thegoaldesigner.com. You guys go check her out, send her some love, and then hop into our private Facebook group and hear more from Megan over the next few days. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Marketing in Yoga Pants podcast. Keep the conversation going by visiting marketingin.yogapants.com/Facebook, where you'll get to join that private Facebook group I've been talking so much about. There, you'll get to chat with our podcast guests. Yeah, they're in there too, and all of the other brilliant creative business owners. We're connecting, we're meeting our soul sisters, and we're building our businesses, all while in yoga pants. So come hang out with us. Again, visit marketinginyogapants.com/Facebook to get in. And one more thing. If you dig this podcast, would you be awesome and share it with someone? This entire Marketing in Yoga Pants movement is nothing without its community. So please share. And if you're really feeling the love right now, jump into iTunes. You're probably already there if you're listening to this right now. And leave us a rating and review. The more of those we rack up, the more the podcast will be found by ladies like you, and the stronger this community becomes. This episode was edited and produced by the Podcast Engineers. They're pretty great, so go find them at podcastengineers.com. This episode was also brought to you by my online marketing agency, Jam Marketing Group, and you can find us at jammarketinggroup.co. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you back here next week on the Marketing in Yoga Pants podcast. Love ya. Bye.